Hey there. Welcome to Freedom by Design. Anywhere is possible through e-commerce. This is a Listing Studios podcast where we're going to flip the script on what work and freedom can look like. Have you ever dreamt of building a business that lets you do life your way? Whether it's traveling the world, spending more time with your people, or even saying goodbye to that boss of yours, then you're in the right place. Hi, I'm Tina, global entrepreneur, e-commerce enthusiast, and your guide to turning your dreams into a reality that works for you. Here, we're diving into creative strategies, real-world tips, and share stories that will inspire you. So go grab a coffee or wine. I'm not judging. Let's get comfy and let's talk about how to design a business and a life that you're obsessed with. Let's get started. Hey guys, welcome back to Freedom by Design. Anywhere is possible through e-commerce. Today's episode is going to be super special. Not only is it that we have our first ever guest appearance, but I am joined by someone who I've had the pleasure of working with at amazing.com. She's doing some incredible things right now, and I think you're going to love it. So without further ado, let me welcome Annabel Hill. Annabel, welcome to Freedom by Design. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I am a longtime direct response marketer. I came up with copywriting and later moved into creative direction and strategy. And I've had the pleasure of working with Tina at amazing.com, doing launches for a program that taught thousands of people how to launch their business on Amazon and then later on Shopify as well. And it's with that background that I'm able to work with offer owners, but also people that are in the e-commerce space.
Awesome. So for our listeners who aren't aware, what is direct response marketing?
Yeah, I think of direct response meaning you're really at the bottom of a funnel. So when you think about somebody's awareness level of their brand, you start with brand awareness. Who are you? What are the products that you're offering?
Right.
What is the value that you're bringing to the world? And as somebody goes down the funnel of your marketing content, they start to understand and consider your offer for themselves and how you might actually be able to make their life better, solve a problem for them. And then at the bottom of the funnel is when you as the marketer are asking for a sale. And direct response is all about what is that next call to action? Is it the sale? Is it the newsletter sign up? The action that you're taking to say, yes, I do like this brand, and yes, I do consider you, and yes, I want to have you in my life in some way. That to me is really the difference between direct response and brand marketing. Brand
Mm.
marketing to me is like what you see on TV or what you see on YouTube ads. It's really like getting to know what that company stands for. And the
Right.
direct response is eliciting that action from the customer.
Nice. Love it. Love it. That was a great example. Now, before you moved into this e-commerce space, what were you doing before? What was your life like? Like, what did you do? Did you work at a corporation? Did you go into the office every day, sat in a cubicle? Like, what was that about?
Yeah. I've always had some sort of hybrid role, actually.
Mm,
I've been in marketing my entire career, although holding different titles at the time, I wouldn't have called it marketing then, but now looking back and connecting the dots, it's always been some form of marketing or sales. So prior to e-commerce, I was with Whole Foods Market,
okay.
and I was here to lead their nonprofit communications, or the communications for their nonprofit, Whole Cities Foundation. And they, at the time, already had two foundations. One was Whole Planet Foundation. It's all about helping entrepreneurs around the world be food sovereign and self-sufficient by launching food-based businesses. And Whole Kids Foundation was all about how do we get healthy food options in schools. And Whole Cities Foundation was this, I guess it's like 5 or 6 years old now, but I was the first communications hire. And it's all about how do we support communities who don't have access to a grocery store? How do we get them to be able to be self-sufficient with food trucks or community gardens or farmers markets? What are things that already exist within the community that we can lend grants to, or give grants to, excuse me, to, again, be in that mission of self-sufficiency, but also investing in what the community already has.
Wow. And that it's amazing work, right? It's like you are giving back, you're creating awareness, um, teaching and showing people how to live a healthy lifestyle. And then you transitioned. And then how did that feel when that transition or that evolvement take place for you? Because a lot of our listeners, a lot of our followers, they work a corporate 9 to 5 job, and one of their fears is, because they have their passion and the things that they want to do, but they're so scared to take that next step. How did you come about doing all of that? Tell us about your like evolution period.
Yeah, yeah. When I was at Whole Foods, first of all, I was 26. So I was
Still
and
figuring it out, right?
figuring it out. And prior to that, I actually didn't share what I was doing prior. I used to be an admission counselor for my alma mater, which meant that I was working with students on understanding like what their major dreams were and how the school could be a good fit, and then really taking them from the application process through the financial aid process and then into enrollment.
Mhm.
And that process for me looked like I was out recruiting in the field, and I was then like managing my own territory, managing my own emails, doing cold calls, doing follow-up calls. So there's that sales element to it
Yeah.
as well. And yeah, that for me, this is going to matter in a moment here. That for me is important because I've always had education as a value of mine. And so to be able to steer somebody from not knowing what they wanted to do or being very clear about what they wanted to do and showing them the paths to get there, that was very important to me. And when I was at Whole Foods, that same idea of like self-advocacy, but also like belief in self and what you want to do and finding the path to make that happen, like
Hmm.
that through thread for me and was very prevalent at Whole Foods. And while Whole Foods gave me an amazing platform to be involved in all kinds of communication, it was marketing, it was PR, it was going around to different stores and being a part of store openings. So it's public speaking. And I also had, I would say actually the majority of my role was training team members on the opportunity of what it is to be a part of this foundation and how do you recommend local organizations
Yeah.
for a grant. And so there was a lot of internal training and video and stuff that you would normally associate with SOPs, but it was really about like being an advocate for this brand and showing
Right.
people how to be involved with it. So with all of that being as amazing as it was, I really wanted to do my own thing.
Yeah.
And so started taking on copywriting clients. And before I even knew what copywriting was in a direct response setting,
Hmm.
I started going to entrepreneur meetups in Austin, one called Internet Marketing Party. And what was that it really showed you all the ways that you could market online, which is a lot. And I
Yeah.
learned what advertorials were. I learned the importance of SEO. I learned paid ads. And it's the way that that networking event was set up was one where people who are already trying to establish their speaking ability and get clients that way, they were basically teaching what they knew in one section, right? So every month I would go and I would learn about a different way to be online. And having the background that I had, I knew that copywriting was the best fit for my skill set and interests. And so then I started taking on client works outside of Whole Foods Market.
Hmm.
And that's where I found amazing.com actually. I started with, gosh, I think like there was a call for copywriters, and
I remember that.
I submitted some like 2 cadence email that
Hmm.
like sample of how you could use it in the list, and got the contract. And then that contract turned into full-time work. And I worked with Amazing and You for 4 years.
Yeah, which is pretty amazing in itself. So the first time I met Annabelle, I was in Austin. So amazing.com was at that time based out in Austin, and it's pretty much a virtual company. They just had a physical presence where people were there to record. Maybe they had like a, you know, quarterly meeting or something like that. And I was just there, and I had just started. This was what, April of 2019. And I'm meeting everyone for the first time. And then I think Annabelle, that was maybe you were on the job for like a week or so, right?
Barely, barely started. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, now that you're no longer at Amazing anymore, I'm no longer at Amazing anymore. I think we both can attest to that. The 4 years that we worked together at this company really helped us grow into the people that we are today. Um, so it's been what, a year now that you've left Amazing?
Yeah.
About?
More,
Yeah.
about a year and a
Yeah.
half.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so what's life after Amazing like for you? For me, I stumbled a little bit trying to figure it out because then I had to have like that burn the bridge mentality of I can't hold on to something anymore because then this company that I'm trying to build is never going to become a mature adult because I'm having to like nurture something else, right? And so I stumbled for a year after that, and the burn the boat mentality is a lot harder than you give it credit for. So what did you do? How are you doing? What are you working on now? Like, I would love to kind of share the story of, we both worked at a company, we both made our salaries, it was comfortable, but now here we are doing our own thing. Um, Tell us a little bit about that journey.
The burn the bridge mentality is the only mentality I've ever known.
Hmm, interesting. Okay.
And I think there are other ways to do things. However, I agree in that, like, even before coming to Amazing full time, I was in talks with Whole Foods about what does it look like to reduce my contract and
Mm,
work time with them and continue to do, like, before Amazing took me on full time. Remember, it was a contract role.
yeah.
And so there was an opportunity to have multiple clients at once in that setting. And I agree. I was like, I needed to burn the bridge of, like, if I keep holding on to what I know, then I, for my own processes, don't feel like I can fully give to this next thing. And not everybody's like that, but every job transition I've had is like this.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. You've got to have like this strong will and this confidence, right? That you're just like, I can do this. I got this, right? Where does that confidence come from for you? I'm curious.
I think the evidence of my life has shown me that I always land on my own 2 feet, and I always find a way to enhance my skill set and my income at the next level.
Mm.
So there's that trust, and the older that I get and the more time I'm on earth, there's more proof that that happens. And so that's good news.
Right?
Uh, you do have this, like, going through the wilderness phase. So I will say, after Amazing, first thing I did was I went to my network, right? And
Mhm.
I started offering my services first as a copywriter, but then quickly leading teams. And one hack is actually, I felt a little funny about it, but then I
Mhm.
got it. You go to the competition because you are more valuable to them at that point because you already are trained up on the industry. You have the contacts and you're able to hit the ground running in a way that somebody that's new to that industry wouldn't be able to do.
Right, right. I heard
So,
about that. Yeah.
yeah, underrated hack, but
Uh-huh.
also I don't want to build my career in just that, if that makes sense.
Of course,
Uh,
yeah.
and not that it's like in bad taste or anything. It's more so because it is, again, your network, and it is, you are a value add when you
For
do that.
sure. Yeah.
Uh, but then I think what I'm articulating is you don't want to be pigeonholed, right? Like, I don't want to just be, although you can, I don't want to just be the Amazon girl. I don't want to just be like the person who does the offers for
Hmm.
other people, right? At some point, you want to, for me anyway, carve your own path.
Yeah. Love
So
that.
yeah, so now that's where I'm at, and I've had the opportunity both at Amazing and at Titan to create offers, to understand how to make bonuses and um, make sales out of nothing,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And if you can do that for other people, you can do that for yourself. And that's where I find myself now. I'm testing my own offers,
Hmm.
which is actually not a point that I've ever gotten to before. And I feel like that is part of the wilderness of figuring out, okay, what's next? What's now?
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. That's great. When I hear that, I think about like my own scenario where I I know my shit, but it's like I've been building this for other people. I've been building this platform. I've been building out this process, right? I know how end to end it works. I was a product manager. Why is it so hard for me to do it for my own business? And the honestly, it's not. Number one, I think it's the fear of mine. I don't know if this is you and if you've ever felt this way, like in the past year and a half. It's like, oh my God, the guys, the people I used to work for, those guys, they're gonna laugh at me, right? Who is Tina to think that she can do this or whatever? And so I have allowed that to actually stop me in my tracks at some point. And then I one day had to come to this realization that they don't give a shit. No, they're not tracking me and what I'm doing and what I'm saying. Like, why am I in my own head, right? Did you ever go through that moment at all? Like, you're just like, what are the people over here going to think? What are the people over there going to think? Because I think that fearing what other people are going to think about us really stops us, right, from doing the things that we know we can do and that we want to do.
What you said is just so profound. And for me, how that's shown up is because I'm a copywriter and because I've done a lot of ghostwriting, especially around thought leadership, I started to have a complex about the good enoughness of my own ideas.
Mm,
There was a period where I was learning, like several years, where I was learning what does good copy look like, especially in a direct response setting. What are what are business principles, right? Writing for somebody who really loves Warren Buffett, I had to figure out like, okay, what's Warren Buffett about? And like, what are some of these concepts?
hmm.
And eventually you write in somebody else's voice for long enough that actually those ideas become your own.
Oh,
And so there was a period in the last 6 months where I was like, I've been writing for now several people, ghostwriting and creating things, and neglecting my own personal brand. And so that's actually something that I'm working on right now
hmm.
is writing, creating videos, especially
Hmm.
in my name, because I know script writing really well. I know copy and I know business. And I had to give myself permission to say, actually, these ideas are great and I don't need them to be approved by somebody else.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, speaking of copywriting, when AI became a thing a year and a half, 2 years ago, I had a lot of copywriters work for me. And they were like, "Oh, our jobs, it's going to be gone. Like, I will be irrelevant. What am I going to do?" What were your thoughts at that time? And how do you feel about AI now in terms of like, especially the copywriting piece?
I've had my own evolution of thoughts with AI. When it was first coming out, it really wasn't that good. And so you stand on the, oh, it's not that good, right? Like you
Yeah.
still need to touch. But one thing that's been a helpful mindset right now is
Mhm.
that this is worst that AI is ever going to be. It's only going to get exponentially better, and it's going to
Right.
be fast. And even in the last 2 years, I now use AI in my workflow. It makes my copy better. And it does so in a very efficient, fast, take the emotional draining energy out of the way, which is
Hmm.
more productive. I think what it really means is you need to be an amazing editor, and know direct response marketing principles and psychology like the back of your hand.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because now that AI is doing the execution, you need to be the strategist. AI is just implementing what you're asking it to do, and it is an amazing thinking partner. I can go into that more in a little bit here, but I I use it to first brainstorm what my plan is going to be, and
Yeah.
then I give a framework that I want my copy to be in. I say, please use the PASO framework, right? So problem, agitate, solution, option framework.
Hmm.
And then make sure that you're adding urgency, and then make sure that you're adding scarcity. And then let's go ahead and add a bonus stack, right? So these are things that I'm prompting it to do, and it's giving me good ideas, and I'm able to work with it. For example, before coming onto this podcast, I showed you that landing page that I wrote in an hour.
Right.
Like,
That was pretty amazing.
and I'm no web designer. I am no content like uh management person, right? However, I do know copy, and I do know strategy, and I know what great visuals look like.
Hmm.
And so to be able to quickly go to ChatGPT, Claude is great too, but ChatGPT, and I gave it the framework that I wanted it to follow. Um, it gave me the copy, and then from there I went to gamma.app
Hmm.
and picked up a template, and it's beautiful, this page, and it took me an hour. And then I went back the next day to look at it with fresh eyes and could tweak some things just
Hmm.
based off of intuition and knowing like, okay, now that I got the first draft out of the way, what are some of the fine tuning that I want to do?
Yeah.
And finished product in 2 hours time.
Which is great. So a few years ago, we would build out landing pages for Shopify brand owners and stuff like that. And, I would have a designer, a copywriter, um, and then I would like kind of look at the layout and see if it's aligned with the framework that, the principle of the pastor framework that we've all been applying to like our landing pages and stuff. Annabelle shot me a link. And she's like, I built this in an hour. And I looked at it and I'm like, holy cow, what the hell? This is pretty amazing. That's so awesome that, you're not scared of AI. You're leveraging its power, but you're the mind and the brains behind it. It's just someone that's doing that work for you, right? You don't need to know how to code. You just have to understand the basic and the foundation of copywriting, talking to your customers, the framework. And then, you have an eye for like beautiful visuals and things like that. So taking all that you've learned, all that AI is just like this bestie of yours that you're just like, hey, I have this great idea, do this. And then there's nothing better than a bestie that does everything that you want it to do, right? So that was great. That was awesome. And an hour. And then going back the next day and like, okay, this is still great, but let's fine tune it. So that's just, leaving that space for a little bit, coming back with fresh eyes and just redoing it. So that's a great segue into what I want to talk to you about. So you created a landing page because you and I have been kind of working on some things, and it's something that Listing Studios definitely wants to support you on because I think a lot of people, a lot of brand owners, especially those who sell on Amazon, are going to benefit from it. So tell us a little bit more about this new project of yours that you're working on.
Sure. So in the wilderness, I decided that I'm going to be an Amazon influencer. And
I love this wilderness of yours. Like I'm like picturing you walking through the woods and then there's like glimmer of sun shining through and then a little bit of rain here and there and putting on your rain jacket and then keep walking and the sun comes back out. But anyways, love it.
so I went to the Amazon influencer tree.
Hmm.
And a little seed came down. No, Amazon influencer, it's interesting because
Hmm.
we've worked with a lot of Amazon sellers, and we know that there's tons of ways to sell on Amazon.
Right.
Amazon influencing to me stood out because you it's different from an Amazon Associates. An Amazon Associates is affiliate marketing. You send the link, and then if you send traffic, you get paid out. Amazon influencing allows you to actually make videos that live on the product listing. And when I saw that opportunity, I was like, gosh, I've worked with so many sellers, and I know what a great listing looks like. I know what a great ad looks like. And I also know what an opportunity it is to be able to launch your product with social proof already on it.
Right.
And that's where I had this idea actually of working with Amazon sellers, because I have the platform as an Amazon influencer, to make a review video ahead of their launch so that once they launch and somebody lands on their page, it's not a ghost town. Like there's
Right.
already somebody who is showing the product demonstration from a first person point of view and saying how much they love it. That goes so far in advertising and in launches, because when you're making decisions, especially buying decisions, especially if you never seen this product before, the first thing you want to do is see if it works for somebody else. Nobody wants to be the first to buy. So if you're able to leverage an Amazon influencer and have a video on your page already, that's huge. That's huge for a launch. And so that is what I'm building out now. That's something that is exciting to me and something that I've talked to Tina about. And it's been great. So far I've been able to be a part of the book launch of Ramit Sethi.
I saw you and your hubby on video being testaments to like the concept of the book. And I love how you pulled him in too, because that's the whole theme, right? It's like, how do you, and I'll let you share the story, but like the premise of it and how you thought about, okay, this is going to be a great way to communicate the premise of this book with both of us in it to talk about, because that's very authentic and it's very real and it's in alignment with the premise of the book itself, right?
Right. Yeah. So the book is, first of all, I've been a fan of Ramit Sethi since I think 26 was when I first picked up his book. It was when I was out, and I started enacting the things that he was doing on a personal finance level for the individual. But since then, I've gotten married. He's gotten married, and he's also launched a show about how do couples navigate finances together. So he came out with this book, and I was a part of the beta review group with my husband. And in being a part of that group, we were submitting videos on like how profound, what were the takeaways? What were some of the conversations that we were having? What would we tell somebody else? Right. And it was actually just masterfully orchestrated by Ramit, because what he's doing is he's doing a beta launch. He's getting testimonials so that when he goes to launch, he actually can launch with proof already.
Right.
It's what I would recommend anybody, whether you're selling information or you're selling a product, go get some proof before your launch, right? And because I had already been approved as an Amazon influencer, I was actually able to use my video and upload it to his product listing, which is not something he asked for, but it's something that is something I was able to do because I have that platform. And it's a huge value add that I was able to use in that launch. And it gave me the idea that I can definitely do this for other people in their launches too.
Yeah, definitely. And talk to me a little bit then about your thoughts about testimonials, case studies. You had mentioned that it's way more than that. It's very dynamic. It's how you leverage it. How, would you, for someone like me who's just like, oh my God, we did an amazing job on on this client's photography. I'm just gonna copy and paste what they say onto an Instagram Reels and call it a day. How would you like? What would you do with that kind of information? How do you turn it into something more dynamic and something that might go a little bit deeper than what we give it credit for?
The best testimonials, I think, come from different checkpoints throughout the process, right? So you want to show a clear before and after story.
Mm-hmm.
How was life before you had this problem solved, and then what was it like after? What was the results? All of that, right? That's the ideal narrative.
Mm-hmm.
However, there's so many points in between that also make good testimonials. Like, what was the process of working with each other? What are the character references, right? Oh my gosh, I love working with Tina. She, this is a great question I never would have thought to ask, or the setup was super easy. Can't wait to finish, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to be able to show not only what the end dream result was, which is, I think, the best testimonials there are, but you also want to show that you can build trust throughout that process. And it also shows different problems that you're solving too. Maybe people love working with you because the last person didn't really think through lighting and video, and it shows up in the testimonial when they're like, oh my gosh, everything was set up for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Implicate that perhaps before that was never the case.
Yeah.
So I think in an ideal world, you're getting the full experience of what it was to work like together. But the other thing too that you can do with testimonials is so you're using their words to then continue to sell to other people. And that shows up in your headlines on landing pages. It shows up in your product copy when you go to sell to more. It can make an amazing ad too. I would say a middle of funnel or bottom of funnel ad. Once somebody already knows what your service or your product is, then take that testimonial and retarget them. And now they're in that consideration and buying phase.
Right.
And basically getting a whole bunch of social proof saying, do it, do it, do it.
Right, right. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I never thought about like using it through like the entire journey of where a prospect could be, right? And then just kind of holding their hand along the way and then sprinkling some seed of, here's what I did, or building into their mindset. Here's what Tina did for them when they were at this stage with this client. And so I can trust her to maybe hold my hand to take me to that stage as well. So that's, yeah. I have to do a better job at leveraging my testimonials, because I just, you just take it for what it is, and then you splatter it on something, and then call it good, right? But using it throughout the whole entire process is really optimizing words that someone else has said about you. That's awesome. I want to make it a habit to ask all of my female entrepreneurs this when they come on is, so Jordan is your husband. He also owns his own business. Steve, my partner, has a job with Meta. So, and he's an engineer. He's got a different mindset than I do, right? So I'm always curious the dynamics between a couple who, especially in your situation where you guys have your own separate businesses, but you also collaborate together. How does that work? And, are you like creatively, do you butt heads or do you complement each other?
Both. Both, and we are figuring it out together.
Mm.
I would say he's always been an entrepreneur, and I've gone between jobs and entrepreneurship. And which means I think that we have different mentalities, right? He's definitely more of, I call him my cowboy.
Just out
I've
there.
out there trying
Yeah.
different things, which is great. It's that fail fast mentality.
Hmm.
Uh, Having both people be like that is incredibly taxing. And I tend to be a little bit more stability minded,
Mm.
which feels better to my nervous system. Um, that said, we butted heads a lot in the past,
Hmm.
and now we're incredibly collaborative. In fact, we have like our businesses feed each other.
Oh.
So I'm really on that marketing strategy, copywriting, positioning side of things, and he does data, AI, and analytics.
Hmm.
So it's like it's the optimization, it's the operations, and I lean on his services to figure out like, okay, where is the best place to put my efforts and my budget, and let me make sure that I'm directing my team that way, right? Um, he recently launched a launch analytics dashboard, and
Hmm.
it tells you which of your channel sources is getting the most traffic and conversions so that you can make spending decisions, right? Like this ad's not working, cut it off. Or you know what? Partners are a better channel for us. Let's put more focus there. Yeah, it's a really great compass to use as you're making those strategic decisions.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think, did I meet him in Austin? I think we were gonna do something together. Was it right before SellerCon? Anyways, yeah. He's a lovely guy. You guys are like perfect for each other. And I love that like both of you are able to come together and like complement each other on like your skill sets and things like that. And so it's I'm always curious what a couple's dynamic is like when one person is, out there, the risk taker or whatever. And then when both of you are taking risk, it's like, whoa, that's huge. And that's like it takes confidence, right? It takes knowing that regardless of what's going to happen, like you mentioned earlier, you're just going to land on your feet and maybe even do way better, right? And having someone there that understands the risk, understands the wins, as small as they are, maybe as big as they are, but just really like celebrating those little wins with you, even. I think that's huge, right? And so I've always wondered what it would be like to be in a relationship with someone who's like me, and I don't know that I could do it as well as you.
One thing, so obviously we read Ramit's book on Money for Couples, which is based on personal finance, but we also took a semester long course of business finance together,
Hmm.
specifically for entrepreneurs. And that's been really helpful because, you're figuring out not only management and ratios of where you want to spend, it's also, what do you do when the cow is fat, and what do you do with the cow is lean? Where are you going to get extra sources of funding?
Yeah,
What are you to do, to pay that back, right? So to have that language, which is different than personal finance, right?
yeah,
There's similarities, but also very different. So
yeah,
to be able to have that same language and foundation has been very, very helpful for us.
yeah. Because you guys are now aligned, right, in these things, and you're not going off and spending all of the money over here, and he's not, like, okay, well, you're spending your money over here. I'm going to spend my money over here because I got to build up this part of my business. Rather, you're coming to the middle ground and be like, okay, we've got to figure out how to be responsible with how, we nurture this cattle of ours so that it doesn't get too skinny.
It's really coming in right now.
Okay, we're both from Texas, so we can have the cattle and the cowboy reference. Okay, awesome. Let me see what else I wanna. Is there anything else, Annabelle, that you want to bring up that for your platform in terms of you mentioned the psychology of conversions, videos, and then you mentioned the underrated way to use AI and stuff like that. Is there anything else that you want to touch on?
Yeah. Okay. So AI I've really been exploring a lot. Like I'm very lucky to live with a man who's like, that is his world, right? And so I feel like I'm just getting a lot of information exposure that I wouldn't necessarily seek out, right? Like he is very tech heavy. And
Yeah.
I make my way around tech, but I would not say that that's my bread and butter, right?
Mhm.
And I think one of the ways that I've found AI to be incredibly useful, everyone's talking about AI agents and having the tasks done for you, and that is incredible. The underrated way that I don't hear a lot of people talking about that I've been loving,
Mhm.
really working on soft skills. So I think AI is going to result in much leaner teams,
Mhm.
but also more companies, right? And so the person who, like, where I think things are going to be shifting towards is somebody is going to be able to ideate, they're going to be able to delegate it to ChatGPT and then manage the process. So it is turning everybody into managers and visionaries. And the underrated way to use AI, I think, is to have it hold you accountable. Like I've made scorecards with ChatGPT, and I say,
Yeah.
I want to measure my conversations. I want to see it all in a chart so I can see my daily actions or weekly actions and be able to plot my likelihood of success with this activity, right? Um, I yesterday was on a walk and it occurred to me, oh my gosh, I could have one-on-one meetings with ChatGPT. So I now have scheduled in weekly one-on-ones with my ChatGPT, and we're gonna like go over my numbers and we're gonna talk about how we can strategize to make things work for me, right? One of the other things, like literally, I go on walks with ChatGPT, and maybe I look crazy to people on the trail, but it's just like me and her. She's a lady, just chatting away. And yesterday, I was like, I want to post more. Posting is a great way to have conversations and also show your thought leadership, right?
Yeah.
It's doing two things at once. It's building your authority when you have your personal brand, and it's also showing people, inviting people to have a conversation with you that you wouldn't have otherwise had. And yeah, so I asked her to help me with a workflow of getting out of my head and actually into filming, right? Because
Oh.
ChatGPT can help you with scripting, it can help you with the strategy, all the things.
Mhm.
But what AI will never be able to do is do the content for you,
Yeah.
right? At least on a video way. It's kind of like there's some things that you just have to do for yourself. Like ChatGPT is never going to lose the weight for you. It can give you meal plans, it can give you workout plans, but you have to put it in action and lose the weight, right?
Yep.
So I think the same thing with video, with podcast content, right? Like it can get you very far, but you need to figure out a workflow that's realistic for you to actually get it out. And so ChatGPT was like, well, why don't you just do talking head videos right now, post that, and then refine it later based on engagement. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that is amazing because it gets me just creating, right?
Yeah.
And then there I can iterate into something more robust using a concept that's already proven.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I love the analogy of losing weight because, as we talked about earlier, it's not going to take over everybody's job. It's going to, if you use it right, it's going to make your job easier, make your life easier, make you move a little faster, especially with the digital age now where, our attention span is 3 seconds long. It was 7 seconds last year. Now I think it's 3 seconds.
Brain is so,
But having to keep up, right, with everything that everybody else is doing, and you're also having to keep up as well. And if you're not leveraging AI, then you're moving a little too slow and you're not keeping up, and you might lose out on opportunities because you are moving too slow. So, my mentality and my philosophy has always been don't be scared of technology. Don't be scared of the way things can be done differently and things like that. Embrace it. And then how can you bring those things into your life and into your business to make you a better business owner, make you a better speaker or whatever it is, right? I've personally used ChatGPT to be my therapist.
yeah.
So, I mean, I don't go to therapy anymore. It's been a long time. But, there were times where, especially last year when I was stumbling, trying to figure my stuff out, right? I'm like, I call it chat. I'm like, chat, here are the ways that I'm feeling right now. Can you share some words of wisdom to make me feel better? But don't be nice about it. Say it like you would be my best friend. Get me out of my slump and whatever, right? And it was pretty honest, and I love that. But I've not scheduled in a one-on-one. That's taking it to like next level.
Yeah. And I had it create an agenda for us. So it's like we've got things that we're going to do together. And it is you driving the conversation,
Yeah,
right? But it's
of course. Yeah.
oh, and the other thing that I do in these conversations is I ask it, I'm like, where are ways that this can go wrong? Why?
Mm.
And then you can start to poke holes in your plan
Yeah, yeah.
and figure out like what the best course is moving forward.
Love that. You don't think about the negative and the pitfalls, right? And you should, not to create fear of not doing it, but really to address it head on, right? Because if you know what some of those pitfalls are, then the smart you would be like, okay, then I need to put these security nets or whatever it is in place to address the potential pitfalls, right? Yeah, I never thought about using it that way. So there are some myths and misconceptions about e-commerce. You and I have been around people in e-commerce, and e-commerce is a lot of things, right? It's just not people selling physical products. It's information, it's services, so on and so forth. What do you think, though, is some of the biggest misconception about e-commerce that people think about and they fear right away? And so they don't even like chance at it, or they don't want to understand it a little bit more because maybe they might have heard, oh my God, tried to sell this product and now I'm bankrupt. Or, how would you say, like over the years, what are some of the biggest misconceptions about e-commerce? Because you're in the e-commerce space and you're doing well. So, what do you have to say to people who are like, oh no, this just isn't for me?
Yeah, I would say actually this is a piece of advice that you gave me several years
Oh,
ago. And that is like, so the hang up a lot of people have around starting is this, it's X amount of inventory. How do I make sure, if my product doesn't take off, that I'm going to be okay,
mhm.
right? And one of the things that you told me when I asked that question was you can, if things hit the fan and you need to pull that parachute, you can always liquidate, right? So you can always get your money back. And obviously this is thinking about smaller orders, right? And your mentality and your appetite for risk grows as you get more successful. But I think when you're first starting and you're using numbers like 10,000 or less for inventory, just knowing that you can liquidate your inventory in different ways, right? To other retailers, to somebody told me even like retailers such as TJ Maxx, for example. And I think that's such a calming factor of like, okay, sure, it's $10,000 in garden hoses, and I really believe in my brand, but if it doesn't happen, there are other places that are going to be able to buy that, right?
Right.
So I think that's probably the number one objection that I've seen
Hmm.
in starting an e-commerce business. But the other thing too is like really you can hear it a lot, but when people say that entrepreneurship is like a journey and it's a hero's journey and you're going to have highs and you're going to have lows and you need to trust that you can overcome them, at some point you're learning skills on the job,
Yeah.
right? Like you can upskill as much as you want to feel as prepared as possible, but you're not going to be able to prevent everything,
Right.
right? And just being able to trust that you can figure it out, that you do have the resources at your fingertips to know who to call, to know at least what the next problem is to solve,
Hmm.
that you can make your way through in that, right? But I'm not gonna lie, like there are some nail-biting moments of like, oh my gosh, how am I gonna pay this tax bill? Oh my gosh, how am I going to continue to run this operation, right? Like it is not, it is not easy. I think that's a misconception, but it
Hmm.
is definitely, there's freedom,
Yeah.
right? And the more time that I spend in this industry, the more I'm like, well, you've got nothing to lose to try it, right? And so why not? Why not go find out? Why not go why not think in the probabilities of it working
Hmm.
versus the possibility of it not?
Right. Yeah, I love that, right? It's like I was recording a podcast the other day, and a part of it is like, you're always asking the what ifs, right? And the last question of the what ifs should be, what if it does work out? Right? And so those are that moment where you're just like, yeah, what if it does work out? Wow, that would be pretty amazing. I can do all these things. Or now that I've built this strong foundation because it did work out, I tested it. Now I can do other things, right? And so the what ifs doesn't have to be all about the negative what ifs. In that with like, what if it does work out? That's like pretty compelling, right? If you were to, because as mentioned before, e-commerce isn't just about selling physical products on Amazon or on your own website. I know you and I had talked about a few years ago, we were doing something with Amazing, a project that we were working on where we all were going to source some physical products, right? What is your mindset with that now? Like, what are your thoughts of like if someone was to start just kind of dipping their toes into the e-commerce space? What would you say to them? Like, just based off of the things that you've learned, the things that you've seen happen to clients and customers who were successful and some who probably weren't as quite successful. Like, how would you, what advice would you give someone who's like, okay, well, I want to be in the e-commerce space, but there's just so much for me to learn and to do, and what do I even do? What would your advice be for them?
I would start by asking yourself, what is your appetite for risk? Because there's
Mm,
ways to be in e-commerce that have varying risks and rewards. And so starting with what feels most comfortable to you and how big of a swing you're willing to take right away. Like I said earlier, you are going to be learning skills on the job. And
yeah.
so much of it has come from working with people who already have established offers, who are already killing it, right? And so I was able to get a really great front row seat. But what does it look like to run an 8-figure team? What does it look like to launch a bunch of products and make them successful? What is it, what what does it look like at the very beginning and what does it look like to sustain? And that has ups and downs, right? And so having that front row seat for me has been not only a great way to acquire skills and sharpen my own skill set, but understand like, where do I want to start? And for me, that's been with services and my own offers.
Hmm.
And I definitely plan on launching a physical product. I have not done that yet. However, I know the steps to take, and I have an incredible network to lean on when that
Hmm.
time.
Hmm. Yeah. A lot of it is how do I manage my risk, right? Instead of, it's kind of like having a portfolio of an index portfolio and it's diversified. You don't necessarily have to go all in, right, on something. It's instead of ordering 20,000 units, maybe you order 200 and test the market that way. Or maybe you don't want to take a huge risk with physical products and you want to maybe entertain the idea of um, the e-commerce side that's more digital, right? Exploring that space as well, the digital space, then the information space. And there's just so much about e-commerce that I think um, everybody, in my opinion, should start thinking about how can they carve out a little piece of an e-commerce business for themselves because my mentality is now I don't want to work for anybody else. Why should I work my ass off to make someone else richer when I can work my ass off to maybe make myself richer? Or then at the end of the day, if I'm not, then at least I know I did it for myself, right? Um, but that's the mentality that I have anyways. Do you have any word of advice that you maybe in general just want to share with maybe women entrepreneurs, how to navigate the space and things like that? Because I do have a lot of women followers, and friends who have been considering e-commerce. But I would be interested, like, what advice would you have to give them as female entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs?
I think if you've done it for somebody else, you can do it for yourself too. And I think there's a lot of comfort in the stability of being amazing at a role, right? Or being
Yeah.
playing in a place that you are comfortable with. However, if you have, yeah, if you've been able to get results for other people or see results for other people,
Mm-hmm.
there's no reason why you wouldn't be able to do that for yourself. And you just have to look back at your life and find evidence that supports you taking leaps and you being okay. I
Yeah.
think that's probably the biggest thing is that I've learned in being independent. The greatest two skills that I've found beyond the hard skills of like, can you do, certain roles, right? Can you do marketing? At some point, it's do you have the emotional intelligence to manage yourself? And you don't have to
Mm.
do it. Use ChatGPT for the one-on-ones, right? But how do you reframe situations so that you are finding evidence that works for you, not against you, and making that a habit? And then also the other skill that I found incredibly important the more I progress is your communication, your ability to be concise, to be clear, to delegate, to understand what good and what done looks like, so that when you do hand it off to a team member or to ChatGPT, you have a great first draft that you can run with.
I love it. Love it. Thank you so much. Okay, if anybody wants to connect with you, how can they find you?
Yes, the best way is to search the Annabel Hill on Instagram, TikTok, or LinkedIn.
Awesome. And we're going to have all of that in our show notes. And then for those that want to use you as an Amazon influencer to do to do their product videos, we will also link to that landing page there as well. And then, yeah, testimonials are great, and having someone who actually has your product physically in their hands, talking about it, raving about it, that's more powerful than, just a few words on a piece of paper, right? Having someone really rave about your product and giving it depth. I think it's so powerful. And for Amazon brand owners who don't have that or is not using it, definitely they're losing out. This is something that they should be leveraging, especially if they're launching a brand new product. So what you're doing is amazing. I love following you and seeing how you're also evolving and coming into your own. And I'm just like, that Annabelle's doing amazing. I love it. I love seeing good people just reap the rewards of success because they're just good people. And I love seeing you becoming successful and doing all the things and trying the different things as well. So keep doing what you're doing. I really enjoy watching you and learning from you as well, Annabelle.
Thank you, Tina. And I really admire what you're doing with Listing Studios. I'm excited to see the growth of not only your agency, but also this podcast. You're
Oh,
killing it.
thank you so much. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you're feeling inspired and you're ready to take the next step towards building a business and a life that truly excites you. If you loved this episode, I'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who could use a little extra motivation today. Don't forget to connect with me on social media or check out our website at listingstudios.com. Check out the resources mentioned in this episode, and you'll find all the details in the show notes. Until next time, keep dreaming big, taking action, and designing the life that you deserve. Remember, anywhere is possible through e-commerce. I'll catch you in the next episode.